Previously on Comic Book Chronicles.
I, 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 I can feel something. I care. I'm allegedly a grown-ass man, so it's not every day that a piece of media comes along that can make me go, oh, like a teenage girl. This issue did it! Did I say the title yet? It's Love Me, a Romance Story, #1. This book is about a big robot named Jojo who drives a taxi cab in a densely populated, dirty, yet still future-y city, and he wants to fall in love. He wants to fall in love. Damn it. What's funny is that I had heard some buzz about this book, so I went into it not having read the solicitation. So I thought it was going to be about the girl who's in the taxi cab on the cover, not the robot. Boy, was I surprised. But yeah, once it becomes clear what the book is about, you root for JoJo almost immediately. Or at least I did. Because I still have a heart. You dried up fanboys out there know who I'm looking at. The art on this book by... God help me, I'm never going to pronounce these names right. The artist is Stefano Cardacelli, and the colorist is Lorenzo Scaramella. The art is what really sets this book apart and really puts it over the top, even though the writing is stellar too. But the city in this book, in terms of the texture it has and the tainted colors that it has, it's a character in and of itself. And JoJo comes off like a singular ray of light in this otherwise bleak, broken down city. I'm a little bit hesitant to make this comparison, but Love Me, a Romance Story thus far feels a little bit like WALL-E, only less clean, less sanitized. This is smellier, dirtier, grittier, maybe more raw on an emotional level. It's almost like WALL-E if WALL-E was made more for adults. Not in the sense that it's a dirty, cussy book, but it feels a little bit more mature. You know what I just thought of? Love Me, a Romance Story is a fine title, but it kind of feels to me like something I would have called a collection of romance poems that I wrote in high school before I got my first girlfriend. Maybe that's why it resonates with me so much. But yeah, this is great. I loved this. If you're open to something that's a little less flights and tights inclined in terms of the usual superhero stuff, I would definitely recommend Love Me, a Romance Story. It's Comic Book Chronicles, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest today is a senior editor at Mad Cave Studios, where he's overseen titles like You've Been Cancelled, Don't Spit in the Wind, and When the Blood Has Dried. And one of his current projects is Love Me, a Romance Story, which is what I want to talk to him about today, and what a story it is. Issues 1 and 2 are available at your local comic shop now or digitally, if that is your way. James B. Emmett is here. Mr. Emmett, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. This is so fun. This is great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so before we start with Love Me, I feel like writers and artists can hog all the glory sometimes when it comes to
As they should.
As they should. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Now you're an editor with Mad Cave. Before we start here, can you tell us what your job is basically and what you do for the Love Me book?
Well, an editor's job sort of runs the gamut. It's interesting because, like, in other publishing areas, the editor is sort of streamlined to writing and helping with putting the book together and all of that stuff. The editor for comic books kind of does a little bit of everything. We wear a lot of different hats. The editor helps with developing the story with the writer, including editing every script, and helps find the talent to bring onto the project itself, including the interior artist, the letterer, the colorist, the cover artists. They manage the deadlines and the creators. They organize all the files. They proof every step of the process, including layouts, inks, colors, letters, and the final print files. We work internally with our publisher and sales departments to make sure the solicitation information is correct, to make sure everything's going out that should be going out. We don't want to have any spoilers that accidentally leak or come out about a title that the writer doesn't want out there, or
Mhm.
we don't want out there too early. We also do like a lot of the like kind of boring administrative side of things, like like organizing files and uh, setting naming conventions and putting things up and making sure
Okay.
like internal design departments have everything and submitting invoices and making sure those get paid something,
Oh
like we
boy.
have accounts payable department, so they handle that, but like we
Yeah.
get the invoicing
That's some really
from
sexy
our
stuff right
creators.
there.
Yeah, there's a lot of like different things that sort of go, it's the invisible job, as they say. It's like if we're doing everything right, you don't notice that we're here, and everything is going off without a hitch, basically.
There
Uh,
we go. Well,
yeah.
well,
So
our
and we
our
read a lot of pitches, and we, especially for creator owned, that's a lot of
Mhm.
my time is reading a lot of pitches
Reading a
and
lot of
stories.
pitches.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, well, our author here is Francesca Perillo,
Yes.
and our penciler is Stefano Cardicelli,
Mhm.
and our colorist is Lorenzo Scaramella. Now, talk to me about Love Me, a Romance Story. Like, what is it for people who've never heard of it? What's it about?
Um, Love Me is the story of Jojo, who's a robot set in the future. It's New York City. And it's basically all like humans created robots to take over the jobs that they no longer wanted to do. So Jojo is a taxi driver who has a
Mhm.
wonderful life. He has a great apartment. He loves his cat and loves his coffee. And but he feels like something is missing. And then one day picks up a fare. And her name is Gilda, and realizes, like upon first sight of this woman, that he's completely in love with her. Um, and they hit it off, and then are going to go see a movie that night together, and then she doesn't turn up. And then it kind of goes from there. We figure out that Gilda is part of a mafia in the city, and she's embroiled in some crazy drama, and that's part of why she didn't show up, and he goes and tries to find her, and it becomes him very focused on finding this lost star-crossed love of his. So,
Excellent. Excellent. Now, so how did you get attached to Love Me? Now, you mentioned that sometimes editors develop the story with the writers. Did you help Ms. Perillo develop the story? How did you get involved?
well, we did a story with Stefano Cardaselli, and Stefano is more involved in the story than sometimes like a traditional penciler and inker would be. He's, kind of developed the concept out with Francesca and like developed the story with her. So he did a story with us called Don't Spit in the Wind, which is a great
Mhm. Of
story. I mean, beautifully illustrated because Stefano's amazing.
course.
Um, but and that sort of led to us being interested in doing more stories with him. And it's, Love Me is subtly somewhat connected to this world, this universe of Don't Spit in the Wind.
Okay.
So some ties, and there might be more stuff coming up from Stefano where more stuff
Okay.
will be tied into this sort of bigger world of Don't Spit in the Wind
Okay. Okay.
universe.
So if you like Love Me, it would very much behoove you to read Don't Spit in the Wind then.
Yeah, I think, it's not a requirement. Like they're not, there's no big crossover event happening. It's not
Right.
Marvel. Like you can read all of these stories independently of each other, but it's kind of like a fun nod wink,
Yeah.
get to kind of see some of the seeds that are planted Stefano. And Francesca Perello is, I mean, she's doing a great job on the script and everything, and it's just a really touching, great story. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So did Stefano bring Francesca in, and then you get looped in? How does that go?
So they were already he had a different writer on Don't Spit in the Wind.
Okay.
But for this story he was interested in working with Francesca, and Francesca they work together, and they're very good at working together and stuff. So it was sort of like it was easy for us to approve, say, yeah, that sounds great. But yeah, that story, the concept of Love Me was sort of I mean, she was attached to it when we got it, but
Yeah.
it had already been kind of like, yes, we wanted to do more stuff with Stefano. So
Okay. Excellent. So the connection with Stefano kind of brought everything together.
yeah, I would say that. But Francesca's great independently.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, no, it's been. I mean, they work great together, and they're a dream team. They're really easy. They take notes really well. Stefano works very much in like the old school kind of Marvel method, which is like he has a concept that he's like, and that we've all discussed, and that he like sent an out like, or
Mhm.
Francesca sends an outline of like what she's thinking for all of the story beats, um,
Right.
an overall outline, and then a per issue outline, and then Stefano takes that and kind of just expands and draws out from there, and then she does the scripting after all of that is drawn. So it's sort of
Okay.
an amazing method that's not really utilized as much anymore.
Right.
It's very interesting. It's a real you know, just a different method, literally, of
His,
production.
Stefano's work, Mr. Cardacelli's work has a great texture to it, I
Mhm.
find. I mean, I didn't realize he was such a sort of the creative vision behind this book. Is he sort of the heart of the project? Is that what he kind of brings to the table?
I would say he is. Yeah, I think in a big way, I mean, he brings that energy and that style, and that, I mean, there's just like a bravery or something. Like he just kind of just goes for it, and like in every aspect, in every way, and he adds heart and dimension and to every single object and person and thing. And it's sort of an impressive. Every page I get, I'm like, this is amazing. Like this looks incredible. It's um like just the whole world is so there already stylistically. You're stepping into a space where you're like, I know I'm gonna be taken care of here. Like nothing's gonna be like,
Okay.
wait, where did that come from? It's all it's all so cohesive in a whole, and it's really impressive.
It's fully
So we
formed.
talked about Stefano for a long time because I went to art school. So my background is in illustration and design and
Okay.
stuff. The big thing was always being like, discover your style by drawing a lot and drawing a lot and drawing a lot, and um and you discover that style, and the more secure you feel, and like, I could draw things this way, this is how like this
Mhm.
appears in my world, the the more secure your readers and your followers and your
Yeah.
whoever, your fans will feel in that world, and it'll work.
And you know what? The book does sing in a way that's apparent from the very first issue, and it caught me. I don't want to say it caught me off guard, but it I found myself looped in by Jojo, this robot who wants to find love. And it's such an innate human desire. We all want love, and here we are watching this robot who wants the same thing. Is that what you think drives the big connection why am I so connected to this robot, James?
I
What's
mean,
going
I
on
think,
here?
yeah, I think part of that is, I think that's part Stefano, but also, on purpose, from the story itself, is like, he's such an endearing person,
Hmm?
you know, creation, that it's hard not to feel empathy and understanding and sympathy for him. When he's feeling sad, you feel sad for him. And that's, it's just such like an accomplishment of both the art and the writing. And that's what you get from comics that you may not get all the time from everything, like other mediums.
Hmm.
Not to bash any other story methods, but there's something just so amazing about this meeting of, you know, uh just sequential storytelling, but with this added element of lettering and talk and this
Yeah.
not sound. It's not sound. It's like it's such an amazing melding of
It's an
these two.
amazing blend of a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's so incredible. It's still, I mean, like I went to art school for this and I've been working in
Yeah.
comics for 15 years or whatever. And I'm like, I still like get like emotionally wrapped up in the stories and like still just want to tell more. And I'm very happy that I am where I am and doing what I'm doing. And it's a lot of work, but it's also gratifying in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, okay, so we're in New York City,
Mhm.
right? That's where we are. Okay, now one of the things that struck me, and you mentioned about Stefano bringing this concept to the table largely formed. I mean, one of the things that struck me is that New York City feels like such a character in and of itself in this story. I mean, you open the book and you can like it feels dirty and sticky and hot and grimy. I mean, to what extent is New York City, you think, a character in this book?
Yeah, I think it's a big character, and it's interesting because neither one of them live in New York City.
Right?
There's a certain and there's like sort of, I mean, there's sort of a fictional version of New York that's happening there because obviously it's much more colorful and bombastic and than a lot of New York City. Although you go to Times Square and it's insane Disney World. So who can say what? But but no, it's a really interesting take on New York, and it's only in New York that Stefano could bring. I think like his again, I'm just like this is now just a fan cast about Stefano Cardacelli, which is fine because like he deserves it.
Yo,
His work is just like so his work is so good and incredible and engaging and in New York City, they always said that about like in Sex and the City, like it was a fifth lady basically. And it's sort of the same here where it's like this backdrop is so part of the world that they're dealing with and, you know, the setup of, having taxis and, like that's such a New York feel. Like there's so many things that are just New Yorky, but also it's a future New York. It's not like the New York that's right out your window. It's like, it'll be here in 50 years if we're all still around.
there you go. No, it almost feels like it couldn't take place anywhere but New York.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the energy and the sort of obsession with coffee and the
There you
grittiness,
go.
the grittiness of the world itself. And yeah, I'm out. I have to refill. Uh, but I think that's all very true. I think it really feels at home in New York. I think that it just feels like part of the whole plot, basically, and I think it really works really well.
And in terms of the plot, one of the things we got in issue 2 was a big honking fight sequence
Yeah.
with Jojo and some folks that I'm not going to spoil who it is, but it's Jojo and a bunch of other characters. So I mean, when you see those pages, and again, if this is a Stefano Cardacelli worship show, then I'm okay with it. But when you see those pages come in, what's your initial reaction to the fight sequence?
I mean, what's funny is like, well, I mean, I read the outline, so I knew.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, things are going to go down. There's going to be some conflict between, everybody. I mean, his fight sequences are, they're kind of again off the beaten path, but they're so great. Like
Hmm.
from his perspective, it's all from his perspective, and we're all so in his world. Again, I'm just gonna keep saying that, but it's just like, it's so exciting and kinetic. There's like a real energy to everything that
Yeah.
he does. And then of course his fight sequences are exactly the same. Everything is just like energy, energy, energy all the time. And it's so fun. Getting those pages was, I mean, just awesome. Like, it's amazing to be behind the scenes and get things so early, like in the process that, you're just like, oh, I can't wait for everybody to see this because it's going to rock their world. Like it's gonna, like it's so
Only
good.
imagine. I can only
Um,
imagine. You don't imagine that this, and I think I said this when I talked about it. You don't expect that this big sort of egg-shaped robot with limbs and a head will be so, I guess, adept at fighting, but he pulls it off.
yes, he does. And it's funny too, because like he comes across as like sort of such a like a love bug. Like
Yeah.
he's especially in issue 1, he's just like, I'm lovable and I'm an open heart. And I think part of that is on purpose, where it's like you're surprised by this really endearing character, and how violent he can become when he's
Yeah.
really searching and hunting and trying to find this person that he instantly is gravitating towards and loves. And so it's interesting to read a story about someone who has such a clear motivation. It's it's Pride Month. What can I say? And then I think that's it's really endearing to have such a clear motivation for a character. He has specific purpose, basically, and what he's trying to achieve. Um, you'll get some more insight into some of his past and who he is and stuff, but they don't. There's really, I mean, there's a clear story and what's being told, and
Mhm.
it's sort of nice to be in a world, in a space, and in a story where you're like, this is a very clear uh
Mhm.
there's a very clear goal for our main
Yeah.
character here,
He's got
and
a
what
goal he's working towards obtaining.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, okay, Love Me is going to be, is it 4 issues? Did I read that right?
Yeah, it's 4 issues.
Can you give us a little taste, a little nugget of what we might get going forward? I mean, we're gonna find out a little bit about JoJo's past. You mentioned that. What
Yeah,
else can you tell us, if anything?
yeah, I can't spoil too much because that's the fun part
Sure.
about reading these stories. But I will say you'll also find out more about Gilda. You'll find out more about
Okay.
Joe, and you'll find out more about the mafia and how all that kind of comes together. Yeah, I mean, they do a pretty great job of wrapping everything up into a bow. And um, yeah, I mean, I can't wait for everybody to see the final issues. The third issue is out July 10th, and then the final issue is out uh August. So it'll be really great.
Well, I
It's
can't
almost
wait to
time, which
see.
is crazy. I can't. I mean, time flies so quickly. It's wild.
Well, I can't wait to see it myself. Now, here's the thing. Until I started doing, videos, interviews, etc., I had never heard of Mad Cave, but the company's been around for about 10 years. I mean, what else is coming from Mad Cave these days? What else are you involved in that you can talk about?
Yeah, so I have a few stories that are coming out in the next month. There, I mean, I have books that'll be coming out through 2026 that I'm currently
There
working
you go.
on. So, but I won't list all of the things. But right now, When the Blood is Dried, as you mentioned, the
Mhm.
issue 3 is out now, and it's a great series written by Gary Maloney with art by Daniel Romero, and it's a beautiful book, and it's really really cool. It's sort of a fantasy story, but it's very gritty, and it's just such a great story, and that's 5 issues long. The Mammoth, as you mentioned, is this like ghost story, but it's has a pretty big twist, and you know, uh, right at the beginning, one of the main character. This is not a big spoiler because right at the beginning, one of the main characters dies, and she
Right.
um kind of comes back, and it's about figuring out what do you do now with this ghost and how she died, and it has to do with the mammoth, and it's a really cool Paul Tobin, great writer, drawn art by Arjuna Susini, who's just a rock star of epic proportions. And then we also have Galaxy of Madness, which is a wacky schmacky space opera story written by Mags Visaggio with art by Michael Avon Oming and
Okay.
Taki Sama. And they are, I mean, the art, the story, it's kind of sort of a cerebral, wild story, space adventure. It's really a good time. I think everyone will really dig it. The Mammoth also has a Pride variant, which is fitting for the month of Pride.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. The main characters in that are, a queer couple. So
Hmm.
we have a Pride variant and we have a Pride sale going on right now. So if you go to the website, you'll see a whole bunch of books and covers and stories that are part of that Pride sale, which is really cool.
Yeah, we were talking before we hit record here. I read the Mammoth #1 this morning, and it's very interesting. I'm very curious to see where they go from here.
Oh, it's gonna go places. It
Like,
goes everywhere. It's a really fun adventure, and there's a lot more that's coming up. It's very cool. And it's very emotional and very like you get very I did at least. I got very attached to the characters and scared about what was gonna happen to them while
yeah,
I was editing it, while I was reading it. So, he did his job, I think. We're sort of like the first fans of readers, and hopefully we do our jobs in terms of like making sure it all makes sense. But also we get to fan out about working on these
yeah,
great stories with these great
definitely.
people. So
I imagine it's a really fun job. I mean, is there anything else that you would like to add, Mr. M? Anything else we haven't covered?
oh, only that like Mad Cave will be at a bunch of conventions this year. So I think if anybody's gonna
Okay.
go to some fun comic book conventions, we'll probably be at some of them. San Diego. I know I'm gonna be at FlameCon, which is in New York, which
Okay.
is for LGBT um convention, which is really cool. It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
conventions. Like the vibes are so great. And then of course New York Comic Con. And then I
Okay.
think there's a bunch more. So if you look on the website, keep or follow us on socials. I'm really bad at doing all that. But
Sure. It's
if you
Mad
follow us
Cave
on social
Studio.
media, there'll be updates on there as well of everything we're going to be at. So
Excellent, excellent. Well, you know what? Ironically, I love me, and
yeah,
I can't wait to see where it goes. I can't wait to see what else Mad Cave comes at us with. Thank you very much for joining us today, James B. Emmett.
thank you for having me. I really appreciated it. But it was really nice of you to reach out, Rob, and I just had a great time. So thank you.
Beautiful.